This is Real News Media TV, coverage you can trust. Please like, share, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. Select all for daily news updates. 22-year-old slapped with multiple robbery charges. 22-year-old Ricardo Showers Brown, otherwise called Brown Strap, of Bridgeport, Portmore, St. Catherine, has been charged with robbery with aggravation, illegal possession of firearm and ammunition, and a conspiracy to commit robbery stemming from an incident which occurred on Sunday, February 20. Reports from the Portmore police are that about 8:50 p.m., Brown, armed with a knife along with another man who was armed with a gun, held up a delivery man and robbed him of his 2022 Zhongzheng motorcycle, cellular phone, cash and other items including food for delivery. The total loss amounted to $288,520. Brown and the other man escaped on the stolen motorcycle. The bike was traced and later recovered by the police, and Brown arrested and subsequently charged. Jamaican man arrested in U.S. $500,000 lottery scam in Florida. A Jamaican man is now in custody after Florida police reportedly cracked another major lottery scamming network with links to Jamaica that milked elderly victims from New York, Arizona, and Texas out of over U.S. $500,000. Linton Roberts, 50, of Jamaica and Lauderhill, Florida, faces 21 charges, including money laundering, grand theft, larceny, exploitation of elderly, and fraud. According to NBC6 News in South Florida, Roberts' bond has been set at U.S. $1.1 million, but he remains at the Joseph V. Conti facility in Pompano Beach. Detective Richard Clark from the Lauderhill police said the bond is less money than the over U.S. $1.4 million the Jamaican is accused of taking. He admitted, however, that he can only prove that the accused is linked to about U.S. $500,000. The scam, which spanned between April 2018 and February 14 this year, reportedly tricked elderly people into believing they won millions in the lottery. The victims contacted and notified of their winnings via the phone. For each victim, the name of the caller changed. In order to get their winnings, victims were required to pay thousands in taxes through mail cashier's checks to an address in Lauderhill that belonged to Roberts. The Jamaican was under investigation for 9 months, which concluded on Monday with his arrest. The probe also identified 9 victims with ages ranging from 75 to 83 years, stated a report from the Sun Sentinel on Roberts' arrest. But investigators believe Roberts is part of a larger organized fraud ring, but they are of the view that he was not the person who made the calls to victims. Based on court documents obtained by Sun Sentinel, investigators said Roberts admitted to participating in a fraud scheme with a number of people in Jamaica. Early in February, Jamaican policewoman Shellyan Allen was arrested and charged in connection to a multi-million-dollar scamming ring operating in the United States and Jamaica. On Tuesday, she was indicted on cocaine charges by a South Florida jury. Several Jamaican students in Ukraine relocate to bomb shelter. Several of the Jamaican students who remain in Ukraine as Russian forces invade the Eastern European country have left their homes and are now in a bomb shelter. A student, one of several who the news has been in contact with in recent weeks, confirmed this morning that the Jamaicans have formed a buddy system and have banded together in clusters amid expectations of airstrikes in their cities. The students are pursuing medical studies in Kharkiv, Ukraine's capital, Kiev, Dnipro, and Ternopil when geopolitical tension heightened between Russia and Ukraine. We have created buddy systems, so students who live in a particular area have grouped up, and some of them have moved to one of the bomb shelters, the student who asked not to be identified said. He said the situation in Ukraine has worsened since he awoke to sounds of loud explosions around 4 a.m. Thursday as weeks of silent fears turned into reality. He and several other students have had their flights cancelled when Ukrainian authorities ordered the country's airspace closed as President Vladimir Zelensky introduced martial law and urged people to remain calm. I was more frantic when I woke up but I am more level-headed now, trying to think of routes of safety, he told the news. Early Thursday, Russian President Vladimir Putin announced he had ordered military action in Ukraine, confronting the former satellite state of the then Soviet Union with the terrifying force of an onslaught that has reportedly killed dozens so far. Russian troops are said to have landed in the city of Odessa, crossing the border in the city of Kharkiv. Things are getting worse, the student said. He said he was among scores of people attempting to get money from the ATM, but was unable to do so as a second round of bombing began. People are there in the machine for like 10 minutes trying to get money. So after the second dose of bombing started, I had to come home, he said, as long lines stretched for meters at the gas stations and the supermarkets. I am good, bad, and nervous. It's a whole mixture of everything. You're here, it's now calm and quiet, but then 2-3 hours down the line you hear things going off again. Russia and Ukraine have had conflict since 2014, when Moscow annexed the Crimean Peninsula. For weeks, Putin had amassed troops on the border of Ukraine. This is as a result of Ukraine's interest in joining NATO, a security alliance, and the European Union, which Putin views as a NATO encroaching on Russia's borders. This is seen as a security risk. The US and its allies are set to announce further sanctions against Russia after President Joe Biden called Moscow's actions an unprovoked and unjustified attack. Rastafarians in Montego Bay dissatisfied with Nzinga King ruling mount protest. Rastafarians in Montego Bay, St. James today protested in Sam Sharp Square, calling for justice in the case of Nzinga King. They expressed their concern about the outcome of a probe by the Office of the Director of Public Prosecutions, which recently ruled that no one should be charged in the matter. King, 19, who is Rastafarian, alleged that her locks were cut off by a policewoman while she was at the Four Paths police station in Clarendon in July 2021. The DPP's office had indicated, among other things, that there were serious credibility issues in reviewing the complaint brought by King. According to the DPP, King contradicted her own account and witnesses too. As a result, DPP Paul Llewellyn ruled that there should be no criminal charges against the cop. The Independent Commission of Investigations had also made a similar finding. However, the DPP did recommend that King could seek redress in the Supreme Court. But the Rastafarians remain dissatisfied and want the authorities to take a deep look into the case. The DPP needs to investigate the situation a little better, and we are saying the government should strengthen the public defender so that the public defender's office can carry out the prosecution, because in situations like this, we are not clear as to how INDECOM would investigate, said Louis Brown, a treasurer of the Rastafari Coral Gardens Benevolent Society. According to Brown, the Rastafarian community is not in favor of the ruling made by the DPP and wants a more thorough investigation. 2 men shot, 1 fatally in Portland attack. A man was shot and killed and another injured last night during an attack by armed men on Ority Lane in Buff Bay, Portland. The police have since identified the deceased as the 36-year-old Ricardo Everett, otherwise called Gregory, who resided in the Woodstock housing scheme. It is reported that about 9:15 p.m., Everett was standing with a group of men along the roadway after dropping off his daughter when a white Toyota Isis motorcar drove up. Gunmen exited the vehicle and opened gunfire. Residents claimed that the shooting lasted for about 20 minutes. Everett was hit in the upper body and the other man was shot in one of his legs. The gunmen then drove off in the vehicle. Both injured men were taken to the hospital, where Everett was pronounced dead, while the other man was admitted. PNP calls on Wholeness to respond to the crisis in Ukraine. Opposition leader Mark Golding has called on Prime Minister Andrew Wholeness to address the nation on the Russia-Ukraine crisis, which he says has left the world in a heightened state of fear and insecurity. Golding says the impact of Russia's invasion has far-reaching effects for Jamaica. He blasted the government's handling of aiding Jamaican students in Ukraine to get home. Most importantly, the Jamaican students in Ukraine are in grave danger. The government's inept and callous handling of the dangerous situation facing them has shocked the conscience of our nation, the PNP said. On Wednesday, Foreign Affairs Minister Kamina Johnson-Smith stated that the government had offered loans to students in Ukraine to get them home. She said none of the students accepted the offer. On February 11, the opposition called on the government to immediately evacuate the Jamaican nationals given the escalation in tension and the threat of an invasion by Russia. On February 21, we called on the government to do the right thing as the people's lives are hanging in the balance, but rather than ensuring the safe and the swift exit of our students, the government chose to offer them loans for the cost of their safe passage out of Ukraine, which many of the students were unable to accept. The Ukrainian airspace has now been closed to commercial flights, and therefore the students are stranded there and their lives are at risk. The opposition added that the sanctions imposed by the United States and its Western allies have potential adverse implications for Jamaica's bauxite and alumina industry, as one of the two remaining alumina refineries in operation is Russian-owned. In addition to this, the party leader highlighted that basic food prices could be further influenced by the Russia-Ukraine situation. Our people have been reeling from the hike in prices in energy and the basic food prices, which has been aggravated by the Ukraine situation. This suffering has the potential to get worse now that Russia has invaded that country and requires a response to protect vulnerable Jamaicans who cannot make ends meet, the PNP said. I am calling on the Prime Minister to address the nation on this crisis. The PNP hopes that diplomatic engagement will continue to be pursued and that any further escalation of war will be prevented. We call for the immediate and unconditional withdrawal of all Russian forces from the sovereign territory of Ukraine, Golden said. The opposition leader described the invasion as an act of aggression, which is reminiscent of what should have been a bygone age, which threatens to undermine the multilateral system for maintaining world peace. We extend our sympathies and prayers for all those who are exposed to grave danger in this conflict, the opposition party leader said. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. Select all for daily news updates.